There was a time when Will Smith and his family looked like the very definition of Hollywood royalty. Will was one of the biggest movie stars alive. Jada was a respected actress and creator in her own right. And their kids, Jaden and Willow, seemed destined to carry the torch into a new era of stardom. They had the money, the power, and the influence. Everything the Fresh Prince could have dreamed of back when he was growing up in West Philadelphia. But the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. As the years went on, cracks began to show. The carefully crafted image of the Smiths as Hollywood's first family gave way to messy headlines, uncomfortable interviews, and the kind of drama no PR team could contain. What once inspired admiration now sparks ridicule, pity, and endless memes. I'm Late Night Catch Up, and this is where the Smiths dynasty stands now. When talking about this clan, you have to start with the man who put them on the map, Will Smith. Before we break down his fall, it's important to revisit just how massive he once was. Will first caught the public's attention as the Fresh Prince, rapping alongside DJ Jazzy Jeff. Their clean, upbeat style gave the world classics like Summertime, even netting them the first ever rap Grammy. But the success didn't last. Album sales dropped, debts piled up, and Will famously ran into serious trouble with the IRS.
Released our next album, and it was like a flop. It went like double plastic. I spent all my money, and I didn't forget, but I didn't pay the IRS. In my mind, I wasn't like trying to avoid paying taxes. I was just like, oh damn, they need their money. The IRS took all of that stuff. So I was like, broke. Being famous and broke is a shitty combination, because you're still famous and people recognize you, but they recognize you while you sitting next to them on the bus.
Barely able to afford the bus. That low point didn't last. A chance introduction to Quincy Jones opened the door to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The sitcom became a cultural phenomenon, launching Will into television stardom and, soon after, Hollywood superstardom. By the mid-90s, Will was headlining action blockbusters like Bad Boys, Independence Day, and Men in Black. For decades, he was seen as a sure thing at the box office. Even when critics dismissed films like Wild Wild West or Bright, audiences still showed up and the money kept rolling in. At the same time, Will kept one foot in music, releasing platinum albums throughout the 90s before retiring from rap in 2005. His staying power came from more than just talent. It was his image. Will was the clean-cut star who didn't curse in his raps, projecting positivity and charm that made him beloved across generations. That commitment to family-friendly entertainment came after his grandmother discovered curse words in his early lyrics and told him that truly intelligent people don't need to use words like this. From then on, Will built his career on a wholesome persona, but that carefully maintained image carried its own baggage. While America adored him, many in hip-hop labeled him soft and corny, an outsider in a genre defined by grit and authenticity. Eminem even mocked him for dismissing profanity in music.
This the whole genre of rap. He dissed gangster rap. I felt like he was taking a stab at me and Dre and anybody who uses profanity on a record to express themselves. Not everybody is as happy as Will Smith. So if he sees life about birds and bees and wants to rap about flowers, then let him rap about birds and bees and flowers. But don't diss nobody else.
Still, Will's likability made him nearly untouchable, at least on the surface. Behind the scenes, though, he admitted that Will Smith was a character he'd built to shield himself from trauma and vulnerability. In interviews around the release of his autobiography, Will confessed that his public image wasn't authentic. The smiling, endlessly positive superstar wasn't always real. He carried bottled rage, insecurities, and envy, even jealousy of Jada's close bond with Tupac, a man he felt he could never measure up to. That facade couldn't last forever.
Were you ever jealous of the love Jada had for Tupac?
Yeah, that was a big regret for me too, because I could never open up to interact with Pac. But she just loved him like he was the image of perfection. But she was with the Fresh Prince. It was like I never could, like, even we were in the room together a couple times. I couldn't speak to him, and he wasn't going to speak to me if I wasn't going to speak to him. That was a huge regret of mine. I couldn't handle it.
And the breaking point came at the 2022 Oscars. That night should have been Will's crowning achievement, finally winning an Academy Award for his role in King Richard. Instead, one impulsive slap destroyed decades of goodwill. His violent outburst at Chris Rock shocked the world. In a moment that will live forever in meme history, Will Smith transformed from Hollywood's nicest guy to a cautionary tale of unchecked anger. The Academy banned him for 10 years, and his career momentum screeched to a halt. Will tried to explain the incident as years of buried trauma boiling over, memories of witnessing domestic violence as a child, frustrations he'd long suppressed, but the damage was done. Film offers dried up, studios distanced themselves, and his attempt to reinvent himself musically fell flat. 20 years after his last rap album, Will dropped Based on a True Story, hoping honesty and raw lyricism would revive him. Despite support from stars like Kendrick Lamar and Jay-Z, the project bombed. Sales were dismal, reviews brutal. Pitchfork mocked it as a corny apology tour, while others labeled it a midlife crisis on wax. Instead of a triumphant comeback, Will's foray back into hip-hop only deepened the sense that he'd lost his way. Freestyles and singles that followed were panned as cringeworthy, turning him from one of Hollywood's most beloved figures into a symbol of how quickly a legacy can unravel. But Will wasn't alone in tarnishing the family's image. His longtime partner, Jada Pinkett Smith, played just as large a role in the downfall. Once admired as one half of Hollywood's strongest power couple, Jada's decision to open their private lives to the world backfired spectacularly. Her Facebook series, Red Table Talk, started as a space for raw conversations. Over time, it became the stage where the Smiths' personal drama was broadcast for millions. The breaking point came when Jada admitted to an entanglement with singer August Alsina. That revelation, delivered while Will sat beside her looking visibly crushed, permanently altered how the public saw their marriage. To fans, it looked less like authentic honesty and more like humiliation. Clips of Jada dismissing Will's discomfort or oversharing about their relationship spread like wildfire, fueling memes and ridicule. What was once seen as a fairy tale union became Exhibit A of dysfunction. Jada doubled down, releasing a memoir packed with more revelations about her marriage, Tupac, and her own struggles. But by the time it hit shelves, audiences were exhausted, sales flopped, critics slammed it, and the narrative hardened. Jada was oversharing for profit at the expense of her family. Even their children reportedly wished she'd kept more private. Speaking of the kids, Jaden Smith spent much of his career trying to escape his parents' shadow. Emancipated at 15, he declared his independence early, chasing music, fashion, and philosophy with an intensity that often made him a target for ridicule. His cryptic tweets, eccentric interviews, and self-serious approach turned him into a meme, while his music struggled to gain traction beyond a niche audience. Despite moments of promise, like his debut Sire gaining some attention, his projects failed to achieve the mainstream success he craved. Meanwhile, Willow Smith, the youngest of the clan, carved her own path. She broke out with Whip My Hair at just 9 years old, but the experience left her feeling exploited and depressed. After years of reflection and healing, Willow reinvented herself musically, experimenting across genres from R&B to pop punk. Unlike her brother, her work resonated. By her 6th album, she'd found critical respect and a growing fan base. Opening for Coldplay and earning praise for her artistry, Willow has arguably become the most musically successful Smith of her generation. And then there's August Alsina, the outsider pulled into the family saga. Once a promising R&B star, his entanglement with Jada overshadowed his career. Though he later insisted he had Will's blessing, the public narrative reduced him to a tabloid headline. Even attempts to move past it, like releasing an album or joining This Surreal Life, couldn't erase the stigma. Eventually, he made headlines again by coming out on the reality show, but his music career never recovered. Within just a few years, the Smiths went from Hollywood's model family to one of its most infamous cautionary tales. Their every revelation chipped away at the myth of perfection, replacing admiration with ridicule. Today, they stand not as America's sweethearts, but as proof that fame, oversharing, and unresolved trauma can dismantle even the strongest seeming empire. And one thing's for sure, the internet never forgets. If you made it this far and enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next You Won't Want to Miss.